My name is Asia Forrester and I'm 32 years old. 3 weeks ago at my sister's wedding, my aunt got drunk and told me my mother had thrown away my Columbia acceptance letter 14 years ago, and everyone at the table already knew. I looked at my mother across the reception hall. She didn't flinch. She didn't apologize. She smiled. And then she said 5 words that undid 14 years of silence. You wouldn't have lasted a semester. I'd spent half my life believing I wasn't good enough, that I'd aimed too high and the universe had corrected me. Turns out it wasn't the universe. It was my mom, a mailbox, and a trash can. What I pulled out of my purse that night made the smile disappear. But I'll get to that. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. Now, let me take you back to 2012, the spring I was supposed to leave for New York. Senior year at Ridgemont High, a school small enough that your GPA was everybody's business. Mine was 3.9. I worked Friday and Saturday nights at Sal's Pizzeria for $6 an hour plus tips, and I saved every cent because I knew nobody was saving anything for me. My mother, Diane, had a system. There was Brooke, my younger sister, 14 at the time, and there was me. Brooke got cello lessons. Brooke got a private SAT tutor. Brooke got a college counselor who charged $200 an hour and came to our house with color-coded binders. I got a stack of community college brochures left on my bed one afternoon without a word. I didn't argue. I just applied to Columbia behind her back. I wrote my essay at the public library after my shifts at Sal's. I paid the application fee with tip money, $63 in crumpled 5s and 1s stuffed into an envelope. I didn't tell my mother because I already knew what she'd say. She'd said it 100 times in 100 different ways. You're the kind of girl who stays local, Asia. That's not an insult. That's just who you are. She said it like she was describing the weather, like she was reading a fact off the back of a cereal box. The thing is, I almost believed her. Almost. But something stubborn in me, something she hadn't managed to train out, filled in those application blanks and dropped that envelope into the mailbox at the post office on Route 9, where she couldn't intercept it. I didn't tell Brooke either. Not because I didn't trust her. She was 14. She still thought Mom was fair. And Diane had her own phrase for the difference between us. She'd tell relatives at Thanksgiving, at church, at the grocery store. Brooke has potential. Asia has stability. Stability. Like I was a piece of furniture. April 2012. Every day after school, I checked the mailbox before walking inside. Every day it was empty or full of things addressed to Diane Forrester. Diane Forrester. Diane Forrester. Our mailbox sat at the end of the driveway, a rusted green thing with a flag that never stood up straight. My mother got home from her job at the school district office by 3:15. I got off the bus at 3:40. 25 minutes. That's all the head start she needed. I didn't know that then. I just knew the letter never came. One evening, I sat at the kitchen table and asked her point blank, "Did anything come from Columbia?" She barely looked up from the grocery circular. Nothing came. I'm sorry, honey. Maybe it's for the best. I went upstairs and cried into my pillow with the door shut. She didn't come check on me. I heard her downstairs on the phone, the door to her bedroom clicking shut, her voice low and fast. At the time, I figured she was talking to a friend. I didn't think about it again for 14 years. The next morning, a stack of freshly printed community college brochures sat on the kitchen counter next to my cereal bowl. Tri-County Community College, Ridgemont Valley Technical Institute. Bright covers, smiling students, tuition rates circled in red pen. She'd printed them the night before. While I was crying upstairs, she was at the computer printing my backup plan. I enrolled at Tri-County that August. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I'd transfer. And for a while I did keep telling myself that until the telling got quieter and quieter, and eventually I stopped. I didn't fight. I didn't call to check. I was 18 and my mother told me I wasn't enough. And I believed her. Let me compress 14 years into what they actually felt like, a long, slow climb up a staircase someone told you was a dead end. Tri-County for 2 years, then transferred to Penn State Harrisburg. Graduated with a degree in project management and $38,000 in student loans. Got a job as an administrative assistant at a mid-sized construction firm. Answered phones, filed permits, learned to read blueprints because nobody told me I couldn't. By 26, I was a project coordinator. By 29, a project manager. By 31, senior project manager overseeing residential builds worth $3 to $4 million each. I bought a small house with a backyard 15 minutes from where I grew up. I paid my own mortgage. I mowed my own lawn. And every single time I hit a milestone, every raise, every promotion, every closing, my mother found a way to reframe it. That's nice, Aisha. Brooke just got promoted to marketing coordinator at Palmer & West. Isn't that wonderful? You bought a house. Good for you. Brooke's looking at places in the Fieldcrest development. A much nicer neighborhood. It wasn't that she insulted me outright. She just made sure I knew the scoreboard. And on that scoreboard, Brooke was always 2 points ahead. Not because Brooke earned it, but because my mother kept moving the goalposts. I didn't resent Brooke. She was my little sister. She worked hard in her own way. What I resented was myself for not being enough, for not getting into Columbia, for being the kind of girl who stays local. That belief sat in my chest like a stone for 14 years. And then 6 months ago, something changed. But I'll get to that. Brooke called me on a Tuesday in March. She was getting married. Kyle Maddox, decent guy, worked in pharmaceutical sales, smiled too much but meant it. She wanted me as a bridesmaid. Not maid of honor, I said, half joking. Mom's handling most of the planning, so she kind of assigned herself that role. Course she did. I said yes because I loved Brooke. I said yes because that's what older sisters do. 2 days later, my mother called, not to congratulate me on being asked, not to chat, but to manage. Aisha, I need you to understand something. This is Brooke's day. Don't make it about you. I haven't done anything, Mom. I know how you can be. How I can be. The phrase she'd been using since I was 12. Whenever I had an opinion, a boundary, a thought she hadn't pre-approved, how you can be, as if existing with a spine was a character flaw. She also informed me I'd be wearing sage green, not the dusty rose the other bridesmaids were wearing, because it's better for your complexion. A different color. Set apart. Controlled down to the thread count. I hung up and sat in my kitchen for a long time. I thought about every holiday, every birthday, every family dinner where I'd shown up, smiled, and played my role. The dependable one. The stable one. The one who didn't need anything because she'd been trained not to ask. I was 32 years old. I managed $4 million construction projects. I coordinated teams of 30 people. I solved problems under deadline pressure every single week. And my mother still treated me like a girl who needed to be told what color to wear. Here's what I started to understand in the weeks before the wedding. The problem wasn't just my mother. Problem was me, or more specifically, the story I'd been carrying. I'd just been promoted to senior project manager. My boss, Gerald, pulled me aside after the announcement and said, "You should present the Colton Ridge project to the board next quarter." My first thought, I'm not qualified for that. My second thought, where did that come from? I had the numbers. I had the results. I'd brought a project in under budget and ahead of schedule for the first time in our division's history. But somewhere between my brain and my mouth, there was a wall, a voice, my mother's voice specifically, saying, "You're the kind of girl who stays local." That's when it hit me. Clean, hard, like walking into a glass door. The lie wasn't just about Columbia. The lie was structural. It had shaped everything. The way I second-guessed myself in meetings. The way I deflected compliments. The way I flinched whenever someone asked where I went to college, as if Tri-County and Penn State Harrisburg were confessions instead of accomplishments. If I stayed silent, if I kept playing the role my mother had written for me, I'd lose another 14 years. I'd keep shrinking in boardrooms. I'd keep apologizing for taking up space. I'd keep living inside a story someone else made up. I couldn't afford that. Not financially. I was fine financially, but something more expensive than money was being spent, and I was running out of it. 6 months before the wedding, I'd made a decision that terrified me. A decision I hadn't told anyone about. Not my mother, not Brooke, not even my closest friend. I wasn't ready to talk about it yet, but it was sitting in my purse. The rehearsal dinner was at the country club the night before the wedding. Pale tablecloths, candles that smelled like vanilla. 80 people in a room built for 60. My mother stood up to give a toast. She held her champagne glass like a scepter. For 9 minutes, I timed it on my phone under the table, she talked about Brooke's journey, Brooke's first steps, Brooke's cello recital at age 10, Brooke's acceptance to Whitmore College, Brooke's career, Brooke's heart of gold. She did not mention my name once. Not once in 9 minutes. I sat 4 feet away from her in the sage green dress she'd picked, and I did not exist. I always knew Brooke was meant for great things, she said, her eyes shining. A mother knows. The room clapped. I clapped too, because what else do you do when your mother erases you in public and everybody watches? Afterward, I felt a hand squeeze mine under the table. My Aunt Patricia, my mother's younger sister, held on tight. Her eyes were red. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I looked at her. Sorry for what? She opened her mouth, closed it, took a long sip of champagne. Never mind. Tomorrow. I'll tell you tomorrow. Tell me what, Patricia? She shook her head and looked away, but her hand was trembling. Your mother is not who you think she is, she said so quietly I almost missed it. And neither are you. She got up and walked to the restroom before I could respond. I sat there with my aunt's words rattling in my skull and my mother's toast still echoing off the walls. Something was coming. I could feel it the way you feel a storm. The air changes before the sky does. At that rehearsal dinner, my aunt squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "I'm sorry." And I had no idea what she was apologizing for. Not yet. But I felt it in my chest. Something was coming. If you've ever sat at a family table and felt like everyone knew something except you, drop a comment and tell me because I need to know I'm not the only one. Also, hit subscribe if you haven't. This story is about to turn. Wedding morning. The bridal suite at the country club smelled like hairspray and gardenias. Brooke sat in front of a vanity mirror while a makeup artist worked on her eyes. She looked beautiful. Genuinely, heartbreakingly beautiful. And for a moment I forgot about everything else. "Zip me up," she asked. I pulled the zipper on her dress, careful with the lace. My little sister getting married. Then Diane walked in, clipboard in hand. Literally a clipboard. Flowers need to move 6 inches to the left on the altar. Kyle's grandmother is in a wheelchair, so rearrange row 3. And Aisha, stand in the back for photos. Brooke's the bride, not you. The makeup artist's brush paused mid-stroke. "Mom," Brooke said quietly. "What?" "I'm being practical. She's taller. She'll block the shot. I'm 5 feet 6 inches. Brooke is 5 feet 4 inches. 2 inches is not a blocking issue." "It's fine," I said. "See, she's fine." Diane turned back to her clipboard. "Oh, and smile less during the ceremony. You're pulling focus. Smile less." At my sister's wedding, I was being told to dim myself so the room wouldn't accidentally notice me. The makeup artist looked at me in the mirror. I looked back. We shared the kind of glance that doesn't need words. Kind where a stranger sees something and decides not to say it. Brooke reached for my hand while her mascara dried. "Ignore her. You look beautiful." Thanks, Brookie. I meant it. And I meant the nickname, the one from when she was 6 and I was 10, before our mother drew a line between us and told us it was the horizon. I smoothed the back of her veil. Diane barked orders at the florist on the phone, and I thought, tonight. Patricia said, tonight. The ceremony was outdoors, white chairs on a lawn, an arbor wrapped in ivy, 120 guests arranged in neat rows like an audience waiting for a show, and my mother made sure it was hers. She sat front row center, clutching Brooke's hand before the processional like she was the one giving her away. Our father, Greg, wasn't there. He'd moved to Arizona after the divorce when I was 12. Diane had managed that exit too, slowly, deliberately, until he felt like a guest in his own house and left. She told everyone he chose to leave. She never mentioned the part where she changed the locks while he was at work. Before the ceremony started, Diane had already rewritten the program. The officiant announced an unscheduled addition. A few words from the mother of the bride. Brooke's wedding planner looked confused. This wasn't in the run sheet. Diane walked to the front. She was wearing an ivory dress. Not white. Ivory, just close enough to white that you noticed, just far enough that you couldn't complain without sounding petty. She spoke for 4 minutes about the privilege of raising a daughter who shines. She talked about sacrifice. She talked about long nights helping with homework, Brooke's homework specifically. She talked about pouring everything I had into making sure my girl had every opportunity. My girl, singular. I stood in the bridesmaid line, sage green, holding a bouquet of roses, and I watched 120 people nod along as my mother described a family that had one child. I caught Patricia's eye from the 4th row. 986. She was gripping the edge of her folding chair. Her jaw was tight. She shook her head just barely. A private signal I didn't yet understand. The reception moved indoors. Round tables, centerpieces of white peonies, a DJ playing Sinatra low enough to talk over. The family table was near the head table, close enough to see Brooke and Kyle, far enough to feel like the second tier. Seated around me, Diane, Patricia, my grandmother Martha, 82, hearing aids in both ears, still sharper than anyone gave her credit for. 2 cousins from Diane's side, Tyler and Mitchell, both too busy on their phones to notice anything. Diane started within minutes. She turned to Martha and launched into a highlight reel of Brooke's life. Accomplishment delivered like a press release. Brooke got into Whitmore on her first try. Full family support, of course. Some children just rise when you give them the foundation. She glanced at me when she said, "Some children." The phrasing was no accident. And now this beautiful wedding. Kyle is wonderful, the kind of man who appreciates a woman with ambition. I sipped my water and said nothing. I've been practicing this my whole life, the art of sitting still while someone narrates your insignificance. Patricia poured her 3rd glass of champagne, then her 4th. Her hand wasn't steady anymore. She kept looking at me, then at Diane, then back at me. A triangle of glances that was getting faster. Diane noticed. For the first time that day, I saw something flicker across my mother's face that wasn't control. It was worry. She looked at Patricia and said casually, "Patty, maybe switch to water." "I'm fine," Patricia said too loudly. Mitchell looked up from his phone. Martha tilted her good ear toward Patricia. Something was building at that table, quiet and pressurized, like a pipe about to give. A cousin of Kyle's from the next table leaned over. "So, Acacia, what are you up to these days? Brooke talks about you all the time." Before I could answer, Diane cut in. "She does office work. It's fine. Not everyone is built for the fast track." Table went quiet. Even Tyler looked up. I set my water glass down. My hand was steady. My voice was not loud. "I manage $4 million construction projects, Mom. I think I'm on a track." Diane waved her hand. "You know what I mean? Brooke's in marketing at Palmer & West. Very competitive field. Very high pressure." She smiled at the cousin. "Acia's more of a behind-the-scenes person." behind the scenes like I was a stagehand in someone else's life. Martha, my grandmother, who had been quiet all evening, who everyone assumed wasn't fully following the conversation, put her fork down. "Diane, hush." 2 words delivered like a gavel. Diane blinked. "Excuse me." "You heard me." "Hush." It was the first time in my memory that anyone in our family had told Diane to stop. Martha had always been gentle, soft voice, soft opinions, the kind of grandmother who sent cards with $5 bills and never took sides. But she was looking at Diane now with an expression I'd never seen before. Tired, not of the evening, but of years. Diane recovered fast. She laughed, patted Martha's hand, and said, "Mom, I'm just being honest." But the table felt different. Tyler was watching. Mitchell had put his phone down. Patricia's champagne glass was empty again, and her cheeks were flushed. Under the tablecloth, I felt my purse against my ankle. Something was inside it, something I hadn't planned on showing anyone tonight. That was about to change. 6 months before the wedding, I was sitting in my car in a Wawa parking lot eating a turkey hoagie and scrolling my phone during a lunch break when an article stopped me mid-bite. Columbia University School of General Studies. The Ivy League path for non-traditional students. I read it twice, then 3 times, then I put the hoagie down and read it a 4th time. General Studies, a real Columbia degree, not a certificate, not an extension course, a full undergraduate degree from an Ivy League university. Designed specifically for students who'd taken a non-traditional path, people who'd worked first, people who'd gone to community college, people who were older, experienced, battle-tested, people like me. I sat in that parking lot for 45 minutes. My lunch break was 30. I was going to be late and I didn't care. That night, I started the application. 2 o'clock in the morning, kitchen table, laptop screen glowing in the dark. I wrote my essay in one sitting. No outline, no strategy, just the truth. I'm 32. I work in construction management. I never stopped wanting this. I didn't tell my mother. I didn't tell Brooke. I didn't tell anyone because the last time I'd wanted something this badly, it had been taken from me. And I wasn't going to give anyone the chance to talk me out of it. 2 weeks before the wedding, the letter arrived. Rolling admission. A thick envelope with Columbia's blue crest in the corner. I opened it in my car. Same Wawa parking lot, different season. And I read the first line and cried so hard I couldn't see the second. I folded the letter, slipped it into my wallet, and carried it with me every day. I'd planned to tell Patricia at the wedding. She was the only person I trusted with something this fragile. I had no idea the letter was about to become something else entirely. The night before the wedding, after the rehearsal dinner, after Diane's 9-minute tribute to her only daughter, Patricia pulled me into the hallway of the hotel. She smelled like champagne and regret. "I need to tell you something," she said. Her hand was on my arm, gripping harder than she realized. "Okay, tell me." "Tomorrow after the ceremony." "I can't." "Not tonight." "Not with your mother 20 feet away." "Patricia, you're scaring me." She looked at me and I saw something I'd never seen in my aunt's face before. Guilt. Not the casual kind. Not the "I forgot your birthday" kind. The deep kind. The kind that ages a person from the inside. "Your mother is not who you think she is," she said. "And neither are you." I stared at her. "What does that mean?" "It means I should have said something a long time ago and I didn't, and I have to live with that." Her voice cracked on the last word. "Tomorrow. I promise." She squeezed my arm once more and walked away, heels clicking on the tile floor, disappearing around the corner toward the elevators. I stood in that hallway for a long time. I knew Patricia. She was a high school English teacher. She was careful with words. She didn't say things she didn't mean, and she didn't scare easily. Whatever she was carrying, it had weight. I went back to my hotel room and lay on the bed, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling. Her words played on a loop. "Your mother is not who you think she is, and neither are you." I didn't sleep that night. Not a single hour. I just lay there listening to the ice machine hum through the wall, waiting for tomorrow to crack open whatever it was holding. Wedding morning, before the bridal suite, before the clipboard, before Diane told me to smile less. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed and opened my wallet. Columbia letter was there, folded into thirds, slightly soft at the creases from being carried everywhere for 2 weeks. I unfolded it and read the first paragraph for the 20th time. Dear Miss Forrester, we are pleased to inform you that you have been admitted to the Columbia University School of General Studies for the fall 2026 semester. I ran my thumb over the blue crest. This was mine. Not given, not inherited, not approved by Diane Forrester's clipboard. Mine. Earned in a Wawa parking lot at 2 in the morning by a woman who'd spent 14 years climbing a staircase she'd been told was a dead end. I'd planned to tell Patricia today, pull her aside after the toasts, show her the letter, let someone share this with me. She was the only person in my family who'd ever looked at me like I was worth more than what my mother decided. I didn't know yet what Patricia was about to tell me. I didn't know the letter in my wallet was going to collide with a secret 14 years old. I just knew it was mine and I was carrying it close. The way you carry something precious through a room full of people who might not understand its value. I folded the letter, slid it back into my wallet, put the wallet in my purse, and zipped it shut. Then I got dressed, drove to the country club, and walked into my sister's wedding carrying proof that I was never the girl my mother said I was. I just didn't know it yet. The reception toast started at 7:30. Kyle's best man went first. A funny, sloppy speech about college roommates and burnt pasta. Everyone laughed. Brooke glowed. Then Diane stood up. She'd changed into a different outfit for the reception. A cream-colored jacket over a silk blouse, pearls at her throat. She took the microphone from the DJ like she'd been waiting for it all day. She probably had. Being a mother, she began, is the hardest job in the world, especially when you do it alone. She paused for effect. She was good at pauses. For 6 minutes, she told the room about her journey, the divorce, the sacrifice, the nights spent at the kitchen table helping with homework, the weekends driving to recitals and competitions, the applications she'd reviewed, the essays she'd edited. Every example was about Brooke. Every single one. I poured everything into giving my girls the best, she said. And the plural felt like a formality, a word she'd included so no one could accuse her of forgetting. Then she looked at Brooke and her eyes filled with tears. Real tears or a performance so practiced it didn't matter. Brooke, you are my greatest achievement. She looked directly at me when she said it. Held my eyes for 2 full seconds. Long enough for me to feel the knife. Long enough for the woman at the next table to lean toward her husband and whisper, "She has 2 daughters, right?" The room applauded. I applauded too. My hands moved automatically, the way they'd been trained to move for 32 years, clapping for my mother's version of our family, the one where I was a footnote. Some children are born to shine, Diane said, still holding the mic. Others are born to watch. She sat down. The DJ started Sinatra again, and Patricia reached for the champagne bottle. I pushed my chair back and walked out of the reception hall, down the carpeted hallway, past the restrooms, through a side door into the parking lot. I stood next to a dumpster behind the country club and pressed my palms flat against the brick wall and breathed. Others are born to watch. She'd said it into a microphone in front of 120 people at her other daughter's wedding. I wanted to leave. I wanted to get in my car and drive back to my house and lock the door and never sit at that table again. I wanted to be done, but I could see it. The version of tonight where I drove away. My mother at brunch the next morning, shaking her head sadly. Aisha left early. She's always been jealous of Brooke. I tried to include her, but she made it about herself. You know how she can be. If I left, she won. She'd rewrite the story before I reached the highway. And I thought about Brooke, my sister, my actual sister. Not Diane's trophy, not the golden child, but the girl who'd zipped my prom dress and left me voicemails on my birthday that started with, "Hey, KK." Brooke didn't do this. Brooke didn't deserve her wedding being the night her sister walked out. I went back inside. I sat down. Patricia grabbed my hand under the table the second I returned. Her grip was fierce. "I can't keep this anymore," she said. Her voice was thick with champagne and something harder. The sound of a decision being made. Not after what she just said. "Keep what?" Patricia looked at Diane, who was accepting compliments on her speech, and then back at me. "The truth." Diane settled back into her chair, smoothing her napkin. A cousin's wife was telling her the speech was so moving. Diane was saying, "Well, I just spoke from the heart." Patricia's voice cut through the table like cracking glass. "You know your mom hid that letter, right?" Everything stopped. Forks paused. Champagne glasses froze mid-lift. Tyler looked up. Mitchell turned. Tricia was looking directly at me. Her eyes were wet, her jaw set, and her voice was steady for the first time all night. The steadiness of someone who's finally stopped fighting herself. "We all knew." I couldn't move. "What letter?" "Your Columbia letter. You got in Asia. You got into Columbia." She took it out of the mailbox and threw it away. Table went silent. Not the polite kind of silent. The airless kind. Kind where you can hear the ice settling in water glasses. I turned to my mother. "Is that true?" Diane picked up her wine glass. She took a slow sip. She set it down. And then she did something I will never forget for as long as I live. She didn't deny it. She didn't explain. She didn't apologize. She didn't cry or stammer or look away. She put her wine glass down, straightened her pearls, and said, "Oh, Patricia, you always were dramatic." Martha put her hand on her chest. Tyler's mouth was open. Mitchell had his phone in his hand but wasn't looking at it. "Diane," Patricia said, her voice rising. "Tell her the truth." My mother looked at me, calm, unblinking. The same face she'd made when she'd told me nothing came in the mail. "It was 14 years ago," she said. "Let it go." I didn't let it go. "Did you throw away my acceptance letter from Columbia?" I said it clearly. No tremor, no tears. I needed the words to land on every ear at that table, and they did. Diane looked at me the way she always looked at me, measuring, calculating, deciding how much reality she'd permit into the room. And then she smiled. "You wouldn't have lasted a semester." The words hit the table like a slap. Martha inhaled sharply. Tyler sat back in his chair. Patricia closed her eyes. She wasn't denying it. She was defending it. 14 years of silence. And her response wasn't "I'm sorry" or "I was wrong." It was "I was right to do it." The guests at the neighboring tables had gone quiet. The ripple was spreading, heads turning, conversations stalling, the DJ's music suddenly too loud for a room that had stopped talking. I sat perfectly still. 14 years of believing I wasn't good enough cracked open like an eggshell, and underneath it was something I hadn't expected. I wasn't angry. Not yet. That would come later in my car at 2 in the morning on the highway home. In that moment, I was clearer than I'd been in my entire life. Because my mother had just confirmed the thing I'd been running from since I was 18. I was good enough. Columbia had said yes. The universe hadn't corrected me. My mother had. And I had something in my purse that she didn't know about. I reached down, unzipped the bag, felt the folded paper between my fingers, the soft creases, the weight of it, the blue crest I'd traced with my thumb 100 times. I pulled it out, and that's when the smile disappeared. She smiled. My mother looked me in the eye, admitted she destroyed my future, and she smiled. 14 years of believing I wasn't good enough, and it was a lie she built on purpose. Right now, if this story is hitting you somewhere real, I need you to hit that like button because what I pulled out of my purse next is the part I've been waiting to tell you. Stay with me. I placed the envelope on the table between my water glass and my mother's wine. Columbia University. The blue crest. The address on West 116th Street. Official weight, official paper. I applied to Columbia's School of General Studies 6 months ago, I said. My voice was calm, the way it gets when I'm running a site meeting and the concrete delivery is 4 hours late and everyone's panicking except me. On my own. With my own essay. With my own money. I unfolded the letter and laid it flat. And I got in. The table didn't breathe. Martha's hand moved from her chest to her mouth. Patricia was crying, not the sloppy champagne tears from earlier but quiet, silent ones that ran down her face without a sound. Tyler leaned forward to read the letterhead. Mitchell picked up his phone and put it down again like he didn't know what to do with his hands. And Diane stared at the letter. The smile was gone. Not slowly, not in stages. Gone like someone had switched off a light behind her face. Her eyes moved from the crest to the text to my name printed on the first line. And I watched her process the one thing she'd spent 14 years making sure wouldn't happen. I didn't know you stole my first chance, Mom. I kept my eyes on her. I applied because I wanted it. Not because of you. In spite of you. She said nothing. Her fingers twitched against the tablecloth. You told me I wouldn't last a semester, I said. I picked up the letter, held it so she could see the seal. Columbia disagrees. The woman at the next table, the one who'd whispered, "She has 2 daughters, right?" put her napkin to her mouth. Diane still hadn't spoken. Diane recovered the way she always recovered, by changing the frame. She sat up straight. She smoothed her jacket and deployed her oldest weapon. You're ruining your sister's wedding. Her voice was controlled, but there was an edge now. The sound of a woman who's used to steering the ship and suddenly feels it turning. This is exactly why You ruined this moment, Mom. Not me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You chose to smile. This is private family business. She looked around the table, the cousins, Martha, Patricia, searching for an ally, finding none. No, Diane. Patricia's voice was raw but clear. You made it public when you gave that speech about your greatest achievement, while your other daughter sat right there. Diane's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Patricia wasn't done. She earned this, Diane. She earned it at 18. And she earned it again now. You stole it. Own it. The ripple had reached the tables beyond ours. I could feel eyes. I could hear the shift. The low murmur of a room recalibrating. The sound of 120 people updating their understanding of the woman in the cream jacket and pearls. Diane gripped the edge of the table. You're making a scene. You made the scene, I said. 14 years ago in front of a mailbox. Her eyes darted left and right. She was looking for an exit, for a way to reframe, for the version of this conversation where she was the victim. I could see her trying to build it in real time. The tears, the trembling lip, the after everything I've done for this family. But the table was watching. And for the first time in my life, the room wasn't buying it. Brooke appeared at the edge of our table. She was still in her wedding dress, the train gathered over one arm, her veil pushed back. Someone had told her. Kyle stood a few steps behind, hand on his tie, the universal posture of a man who doesn't know whether to stay or go. Is this true? Her voice was thin, stretched tight. Mom, did you throw away her letter? Diane reached for Brooke's arm. Sweetheart, let's not do this now. Brooke pulled back. Did you? I did what was best for this family. The answer landed wrong, and Diane knew it. I could see it in the way she blinked. Too fast. Recalculating. Brooke turned to me. You got into Columbia at 18? I nodded. She told me you didn't even apply. Brooke's voice broke. She said you never wanted college. She said you were happy to stay local. I let that sit. I let Brooke hear the echo of our mother's lie in her own mouth and feel what it sounded like. I wasn't happy, I said quietly. I just didn't know there was another option. Brooke covered her mouth with her hand. The lace on her sleeve shook. I didn't know, Aisha. I swear I didn't know. I stood up and pulled my sister into a hug. She was shaking. Her veil brushed my chin. I know you didn't, I said. I know. Over Brooke's shoulder, I saw Kyle nod at me once. A small, solid gesture from a man who just watched his new mother-in-law get unmade at his own wedding and was choosing to stand on the right side. Brooke let go, wiped her eyes, and turned to Diane. What else did you lie about? Diane didn't answer. Diane stood. She picked up her clutch, a small cream-colored thing that matched her jacket. 'Cause even in crisis, Diane Forrester coordinated. I'm leaving. You've all made your choice. She said it like she was the one being wronged, like she was the protagonist walking out of an ungrateful room. She'd done this before. Threatened departure like it was a punishment. Trained the family to panic at the thought of her absence. Martha's voice stopped her. Sit down, Diane. My grandmother, 82 years old, 5 feet tall, hearing aids in both ears. She'd been gentle her entire life. Birthday cards with $5 bills, phone calls that started with, "How's my girl?" The softest hands in any room. She was not gentle now. Sit down and listen to your daughter. Diane froze with her clutch in one hand and her dignity in the other. She looked at Martha the way a teenager looks at a parent who's found the hidden report card. Startled. Cornered. Out of arguments. She sat down. Table was silent. The room around us had thinned. Some guests had drifted toward the dance floor. Others were watching from a distance. Champagne glasses held like shields. But our table was the center of gravity now, and everyone at it knew it. I didn't shout. I didn't list grievances. I didn't cry. I'm not asking for an apology, I said. I stopped needing one a long time ago. Diane looked up. I just need you to know you didn't stop me, Mom. I folded the Columbia letter and slid it back into my wallet. You delayed me. I let the word land. Delayed. Not destroyed. Not defeated. Delayed. 14 years, I said. And I'm still going. Martha reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. Good girl, she said. Good girl. I didn't ask for an apology because I'd learned something about apologies from people like my mother. They aren't admissions. They're tools. She'd apologize the way she did everything, strategically with conditions in a way that somehow made her the hero. I wasn't interested in her performance. I was interested in my boundaries. I'm starting at Columbia in September, I said. Not to the table. To Diane. I will not be answering your calls between now and then. When I'm ready to talk, I'll reach out. You can't just. I can. And I am. She opened her mouth again and I saw it. The machinery. The way her brain was already constructing the narrative she'd tell her friends tomorrow. Aisha made a scene at the wedding. Aisha humiliated me in front of the family. She's always been difficult. You know how she can be. But the witnesses were still at the table, and they'd all heard the same words I had. I turned to Brooke, who was standing beside Kyle, mascara tracing thin lines down her cheeks. This is your wedding, Brookie. I love you. I'm going to stay for your first dance. And then I'm going to leave. Okay. Brooke nodded. She reached for my hand and held it tight, the way she used to hold it when she was 6 and we were crossing a parking lot. Okay, she said. I looked at Diane one more time. She was sitting very still, her clutch on the table, her napkin crumpled in her fist. I'm not punishing you, Mom. I'm protecting myself. She didn't respond. I didn't need her to. I sat down. Patricia poured me a glass of champagne, the first I'd had all night. We clinked glasses without a word. The DJ switched to a slow song. Brooke and Kyle walked to the dance floor. The first dance was At Last by Etta James. Brooke had always loved that song. She used to play it in her bedroom on a portable speaker when she was 16, singing into a hairbrush. Watching her sway with Kyle under the string lights, I remembered the girl who used to sneak into my room at midnight to ask if boys ever liked her back. I stood at the edge of the dance floor, my champagne untouched. Patricia appeared beside me. She smelled like champagne and relief. "I should have told you years ago," she said. She wasn't looking at me. She was watching Brooke. "You told me tonight. That's what matters." She threatened to cut me off if I ever said anything. She told me she'd tell the family I was lying. Patricia's voice was steady now, emptied of the weight she'd carried. "I tried to drop hints over the years. I asked if you'd ever thought about applying somewhere else. You always said, 'What's the point?'" I remembered those conversations. I remembered thinking Patricia was being pushy. "I'm sorry, Ishia. I know it's done." She was quiet for a moment, then looking at the dance floor. "Are you really going to Columbia?" I patted my purse. "I really am." She laughed. A short, wet sound. Then she leaned in and said something that rearranged the last 32 years of my life in 3 seconds. "Your mother applied to Columbia once, too. Right after high school. She didn't get in." I turned to look at her. "She never told you," Patricia said. "She never told anyone. But I found the rejection letter in her closet when we were teenagers. She burned it. And then she pretended she'd never wanted to go." I looked across the room at Diane. She was sitting alone at the family table, staring at the centerpiece. For the first time, I didn't see a villain. I saw a wound. I hugged Brooke at the edge of the dance floor. She held on longer than she needed to. "I'm sorry about tonight," I said. "Don't you dare apologize." She pulled back and looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen before. Not admiration exactly. Recognition. "You got into Columbia twice." I smiled. "I did." "Go be brilliant." She straightened my collar. A gesture so tender it almost broke me. "And call me when you get there." Promised I would. I found my coat, my purse, my keys. I walked through the lobby, past the guest book and the framed engagement photos, past the valet stand and the string lights still blinking on the porch. The October air hit my face, and I breathed it in until my lungs ached. My car was parked at the far end of the lot. I sat in the driver's seat and pulled the Columbia letter out of my wallet. The overhead light turned the blue crest almost silver. I read it again, not the way I'd read it in the Wawa parking lot, frantic, disbelieving, terrified it might be a mistake. This time, I read it the way it was meant to be read by a woman who'd always deserved it. I called my best friend, Dana. She picked up on the second ring. "I got my answer," I said. "Which question?" "All of them." I started the car. Country Club shrank in my rearview mirror, the lights from the reception still glowing behind the curtains. Somewhere inside, my mother was sitting alone. Somewhere inside, my sister was dancing. I pulled onto the county road and drove east toward home, toward September. But the fallout, that was just beginning. The fallout didn't explode. Seeped. Within 48 hours, the story had traveled through every branch of the family tree. Not because I told it. I didn't call anyone. Patricia told Martha the full details that night, and Martha, who had spent 82 years being quiet, picked up her phone the next morning and called every sibling, niece, and nephew she could reach. 3 of my mother's cousins called me. Not to gossip, to confirm. "We always felt something was off," my cousin Linda said. "She talked about Brooke like she was raising a prodigy. She talked about you like you were a tenant." My Uncle Frank. "Your grandmother is furious. She said she's never been so ashamed of one of her children." My mother called me 11 times in 3 days. I didn't pick up once. Her texts told the whole story of her internal collapse. Monday, "Call me." We need to discuss this like adults. Tuesday, you're being childish, Asia. Wednesday morning, fine. I'll tell everyone you made this up. Wednesday afternoon, after Martha had already made her calls, silence. She didn't text again. The measurable consequence. Diane was removed from the planning committee for the family's annual Christmas gathering, a role she'd held for 30 years. Aunt Linda took over. Nobody voted. Nobody announced it. The group text was simply created without Diane's number. And when she found out, she called Martha. Martha told her, "You lied to your child for 14 years, Diane. You can sit this one out." She wasn't exiled. She wasn't disowned. She was repositioned. Moved from the center to the margin, the same place she'd kept me my entire life. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. Brooke called 5 days after the wedding. Her voice was like she'd been talking for hours or crying for days. Probably both. "I keep thinking about all the times Mom compared us," she said. "And I just accepted it. I never asked why you didn't go away for school. I never even thought about it. You were 14 when it happened, Brooke. You didn't know. I'm 28 now. I should have asked." We talked for 2 hours. It was the longest conversation we'd ever had. The first one where nothing was edited, nothing was softened, nothing was routed through our mother's version of events. Brooke told me things I hadn't known. That Diane had told her I didn't apply to any 4-year schools. That Diane had said I was content with a simple life. That every time Brooke achieved something, Diane framed it as evidence of Brooke's superiority rather than Brooke's effort, turning her accomplishments into weapons against me without Brooke's consent. "I was her trophy," Brooke said. "I thought I was her daughter, but I was her trophy." "You're her daughter," I said. "You're just not her only one." She asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Are you really going to Columbia?" "Orientation is in August." She was quiet. Then Mom called me too. She said you attacked her at the wedding. I told her that's not what happened. What did she say? She hung up on me. I let that sit. Diane was losing the golden child. Not because Brooke was choosing me over her, but because Brooke was choosing the truth over the story. "I love you, KK," Brooke said before she hung up. "I love you too, Brookie." It was the first time in years the words didn't feel complicated. August. Morningside Heights. The gates of Columbia University. I stood on the sidewalk outside Lerner Hall with a lanyard around my neck and a tote bag full of orientation materials, surrounded by people half my age and twice my certainty. Kid next to me, maybe 19, was FaceTiming his parents, showing them the campus. His mother was crying. His father was giving a thumbs up. I put my phone away. The general studies orientation was separate. We gathered in a seminar room. 32 adults with 32 different reasons for being there. A retired Navy officer, a single mother of 3, a guy who'd spent a decade as a line cook and decided he wanted to teach history. A woman my age who'd been a dental hygienist and woke up one morning and thought, "No!" I wasn't the oldest. I wasn't the most unusual. I was, for the first time in my adult life, exactly where I was supposed to be. The academic advisor stood at the front and said something that landed in my chest and stayed there. "You belong here. That's why we admitted you." 7 words. 14 years late, but right on time. I thought about my mother, about the kitchen table in 2012 and the community college brochures next to my cereal bowl. About the words she should have said, could have said if she'd been the mother I needed instead of the one I got. "You belong here. That's why we admitted you." After orientation, I stood in front of the gates and took a photo. Blue sky, old stone, the crest I'd been carrying in my wallet for months, now above my head, carved into the wall. I sent the photo to Brooke and Patricia. I didn't send it to Diane. The first week of classes, a letter arrived at my apartment. Handwritten. 2 pages. My mother's handwriting, The same slanted cursive she used on grocery lists and birthday cards and the community college brochures she'd left on my bed. I sat on my couch and read it. It was not an apology. It was an explanation. Or more accurately, it was a defense. Everything I did was to keep this family together. You don't understand the sacrifices I made. You don't know what it was like being a single mother with 2 girls and no support. I made hard choices, not perfect ones, but hard ones. She never used the words, "I'm sorry." She never said, "I was wrong." She used the word sacrifice 4 times and ungrateful twice. The bottom, a postscript. P.S. I got your GS letter forwarded to my house by mistake. I didn't open it this time. I stared at that line. I didn't open it this time. As if restraint was the same as remorse. As if not repeating a crime was the same as regretting it. I folded the letter. I didn't burn it. I didn't tear it up. I didn't write back. I put it in a drawer under a stack of old tax returns. And I closed the drawer. Then I picked up my backpack and walked to my first class. Introduction to American Political Thought. Hamilton Hall, 9:10 a.m. I sat in the 3rd row. I took notes. I raised my hand twice. I didn't owe my mother my anger. I didn't owe her my forgiveness. I owed myself a semester at Columbia and I was going to make it count. I won't pretend it was easy. I was 32, working part-time as a project manager remotely while carrying a full course load. I studied on the subway. I ate lunch in the library. I turned down happy hours and weekend trips and every invitation that started with "just this once." The GS program was built for people like me, adults who'd earned their way back, who understood the value of a seat in the classroom because they'd spent years outside of it. My classmates were veterans, parents, career changers, immigrants, people who didn't take a single lecture for granted. At the end of the semester, I checked my grades online at 11 p.m. sitting in the same kitchen where I'd once filled out the Tri-County application. GPA 3.7. Dean's List. I read it 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and sat there in the dark, letting it settle. She said I wouldn't last a semester. I made Dean's List. I sent a photo of the grade report to Brooke. She replied in 30 seconds. "I'm so proud of you, KK." All caps. 3 exclamation marks. A string of emojis I couldn't fully decipher but understood completely. Patricia sent flowers the next day. The card said, 14 years late but right on time. I put the flowers on my kitchen table. The same table, the same kitchen, but everything else different. My mother didn't call. She didn't text. She didn't send a card. I told her I'd reach out when I was ready, and she hadn't tested the boundary. Whether that was respect or stubbornness, I couldn't tell. With Diane, they'd always looked the same. I wasn't ready yet. I might not be for a long time, but I was exactly where I was supposed to be. After the semester ended, I wrote my mother an email. Not a text, not a phone call, an email because I needed the distance and I needed it in writing. "Mom, I'm willing to have a relationship with you, but it starts with honesty. Not excuses. Not I did what was best. Not you don't understand my sacrifices. You took something from me. You took my acceptance letter. You threw it away. And you told me I wasn't good enough. You watched me believe that lie for 14 years. You watched me struggle with it at every dinner table, every holiday, every phone call where you reminded me that Brooke was ahead and I was behind. When you can say that, really say it without turning it into a speech about yourself, I'll answer your calls. The door is open, Mom. But you have to walk through it honestly. Kesha. I read it 4 times before I hit send. Then I closed my laptop and went for a run. She hasn't replied. It's been 3 months. She may never reply. And I've had to accept that. I can't control whether Diane Forrester changes. I spent 32 years trying to earn her approval, trying to be good enough, trying to stay small enough that she'd notice me without feeling threatened. None of it worked. Not because I wasn't enough, but because her capacity to acknowledge me was never about me. It was about her. I can't fix her wound. I can only stop letting it bleed on me. Some days that feels like freedom. Some days it feels like grief. Most days it feels like both. Like standing on a bridge between who I was and who I'm becoming, looking in both directions and choosing to keep walking forward. I'm not telling you this so you'll feel sorry for me. I had food on the table. I had a roof. I had a sister who loved me. Even if neither of us understood the full picture until recently. My life wasn't tragic. It was redirected. And the redirection cost me something I can't calculate. 14 years of a different path, a different network, a different version of myself. But I'm telling you this because I think some of you are carrying a version of that lie right now. Maybe your mother told you you weren't smart enough. Maybe your father said you'd never make it in that field. Maybe a teacher wrote you off, or a partner convinced you your dreams were too big, or someone you trusted decided your ceiling for you and you've been living under it ever since. They were wrong. And here's the part that took me 32 years to learn. You don't need them to admit it. You don't need their apology. You don't need their permission. You don't need them to look at a letter with a blue crest and say, "I'm sorry. I was wrong." You just need to stop believing them. I didn't go to Columbia to prove my mother wrong. I went because I deserved to go. The girl who wrote that application essay at the public library after her shift at Sal's, she deserved to go. The woman who built a career in construction management without a single person in her family saying, "I'm proud of you," she deserved to go too. Whatever your Columbia is, the degree, the career, the move, the boundary, the conversation you've been putting off for years, go. It is not too late. It was never too late. The only person who gets to decide your ceiling is you. Here's where I am now. I'm in my second semester at Columbia School of General Studies. I still work part-time as a project manager. Turns out managing a $1 million construction schedule is excellent training for managing a college course load. My advisor says I'm on track to graduate in 2.5 years. I'm considering a minor in urban studies because the girl who fell in love with blueprints at a construction firm wants to understand why cities work the way they do. Brooke and I have dinner once a month, sometimes in the city. Sometimes she drives up to Morningside Heights and we eat cheap Thai food on Broadway. And she tells me about Kyle and the apartment they're renovating and the dog they adopted. A mutt named Biscuit who chews everything. It's the best our relationship has ever been. Honest. Unfiltered. No scoreboard. Trisha has been sober since the wedding. She says she stopped drinking the morning after. That something unlocked when the secret came out. She sends me a text every Monday. "Go get him this week." I reply with a thumbs up and a coffee emoji. It's our thing. And Diane. My mother hasn't apologized. She hasn't written back. She hasn't called. She may never do any of those things. And I've made peace with that. Or I'm making peace with it. Which is a more honest way to say it because my worth was never hers to decide. Never was. And the girl who stuffed $63 in crumpled fives into an envelope and mailed her dream to New York, she knew that. I just forgot for a while. 14 years ago, a letter was thrown away. But the girl it was addressed to, she's still here. So that's my story and I want to know yours. Drop a comment. Have you ever found out someone in your family held you back on purpose? Or have you ever gone back and chased a dream they told you was too big? I read every single comment. If this story hit home for you, please hit subscribe. I've got more stories like this, and some of them are even wilder. Check the description for the next one. And remember, it's never too late to open the door they tried to close. I'll see you in the next one.